Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 9th monthly Community Echo Conversation event. These Echo Conversations are meant to share thoughts, resources, information, and personal stories that will spark conversation among participants about how to be better stewards of our planet and our local communities. We hope that the discussions will be lively, transformative, and the community spirit uplifting, and we hope that it will spark a call to action. Today's presentation is titled, A Commitment to Foster Sustainable Communities. And just to explain, we had another topic, but that topic couldn't be done with the people that were expected to do it, so we changed to this. This is a slideshow, is a preview of a rollout of a new initiative that is being presented tomorrow night here at the center with other individuals, including the mayor and some of the city officials and some of the other community officials. It's called Fostering Sustainable Communities. This initiative will involve Newburyport and 7 surrounding communities to develop plans and actions towards meeting 90% waste reductions by the year 2000. That's really the mandate and the goals for all of the Massachusetts communities. Today, we'll be able to discuss your role and thoughts in establishing green, resilient, sustainable communities to ensure the mental and physical well-being of future generations. So we'll have some questions in the middle of the presentation and then some additional questions for discussion at the end. So I'd like to present our president, the ACES president, Art Currier.
Thank you, Ben. So I appreciate the full house we have, represented by 5 bodies. This is a culmination of some significant work, and it's our hope and desire from this educational process that we're going to be able to impact multiple communities, and I hope to share why. I'm going to let you read that, but that's the position that the ACES leadership team has adopted in terms of being responsible partners, collaborators with the communities. Okay. Walter, this is another reason for practicing.
They don't believe how toxic this is. If you're still using a plastic or wooden cutting board, you need to hear this.
Sorry.
I never post stuff like this, but I had to share. I cook almost every day, so we've gone through our fair share of
Sorry.
Right click.
I thought I had this down. Oh.
Click on the 19th Earth. Click on the word Earth.
Oh.
Serves the lower right. No. Click on the word Earth.
The intern, or the young lady who's doing this work showed me how, but my brain has not reached.
Word Earth. Click
Earth.
the word Earth.
Oh.
There.
Yet the gravity of the message of Earth Day still
Thank you,
came
Ben.
true. Act or die. Good evening. A unique day in American history is ending, a day set aside for a nationwide outpouring of mankind seeking its own survival. Earth Day. A good part of the effort to make this Earth Day a success was concentrated, of course, in the major population and pollution centers. We have a report on several of the big cities, beginning with Robert Shackney in Boston. It had been a small and it seemed a thoroughly peaceful and undisrupted demonstration. Students finishing Earth Day with what they called a die-in at Boston's Logan Airport. Coffins to symbolize the problems of airport and airplane pollution. It wasn't clear why the state police ordered the demonstrators out, but they were leaving when, for no visible reason, trouble. The police charging the crowd, seizing the coffins, pushing those who moved too slowly, and arresting 13. There had been talk in advance of crowds of thousands, of attempts to disrupt the airport, but that didn't happen. This crowd, just a few hundred, had seemed orderly and non-violent. Earth Day in Logan Airport. Police arrests disorder. Robert Chackney, CBS News, Boston.
For 2 hours, fashionable Fifth Avenue was off limits to automobiles and became a crowded pedestrian mall. Autos were banned on busy 14th Street, too, and thousands of persons jammed into Union Square to attend an Earth Day rally. The square hadn't looked this clean in years, with volunteer help doing the sprucing up. It was a fun day for many school-age youngsters participating in their very first demonstration. There were dozens of exhibits, including this block-long air bubble, to prove how quiet it can be in a busy city. The two streets that were blocked off provided islands of quiet. The quality of air improved, but you didn't have to go far to find Manhattan as it really is. Morton Dean, CBS News, New York.
In terms of air pollution, Chicago ranks close to the top nationally, which isn't much to say about, but that they did at a mass rally in the Loop to mark Earth Day. Over 4,000 persons came to listen to the singing and the speeches, much less than what was expected. Among the recommendations to improve the environment, the establishment of pollution courts to quickly try offenders, and the elimination of the internal combustion engine, a suggestion no doubt aimed at purifying the city's often choking atmosphere. CBS News, Chicago.
Thousands of students demonstrated at colleges and universities throughout the West. At Caltech, while others did the talking, one toddler was doing his own bit to protect the environment. Another speaker who vowed as a college girl never to bear children and who works now with Planned Parenthood, Stephanie Mills.
I think that it's terribly important for us to begin to involve ourselves in politics so that we can turn the system around. If we got together to dump Nixon, we might end up with nothing, but I think that may be worth a try. Obviously, this administration is being utterly hypocritical in its attempts to deal with environmental pollution. Obviously. $1 billion a year is what Walter Pickle is talking about spending cleaning up water pollution. Now, 80 times that is what we're spending to defoliate Southeast Asia and to incinerate Southeast Asians. This has got to come to a halt.
If you're unsure or unaware of your eyeglass prescription,
Needless to say, 55 years ago, it was a tumultuous day, and you can imagine what was happening before that to make that day happen. And now we're going to take a little break and look at what is happening, what has happened, and is likely to happen in terms of our environment. Lon Hockmeister will address the matter of climate and weather.
Greetings. So while that was going on, this was about where we were. Can you imagine that what that group would be thinking now if they saw where we are now? What this is, it's showing, everybody's seen this in different forms and with average data and everything else put into it. But this is kind of the detail of what our temperature has been doing since 1880. And just to show you the cause and effect, we believe that's mostly due to carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. And you can see what the fit looks like on the top here when you scale them. Right, this goes to 2020, and we are now at about 423 up on that up in that curve. We're up about here, a little bit above the P in 2025. So things continue to go up. Just looking at the composition of greenhouse gases, this is looking at carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide converted over to equivalents of carbon dioxide. So you can see the bulk is still carbon dioxide, although methane is a producer. This is global example of what we're seeing. And this is kind of interesting. This is what the forecasts or what the calibrations are doing for the United States of what we're putting out. And there's maybe some good news near the end here. We might be seeing some effect of things happening since 2000 where we're trying to cut back on pollution, air pollution. If we take that temperature forecast of what's going to happen for global temperatures from where we are now on 2025 and project that forward with the red line, with basically not doing much more than we're doing right now, as compared to the blue line, where we set some standards that are out there, some of the goals, the 2050 goals. If we can get down to the goal by 2040 and then carry it and then keep producing it on through 2100, we can actually turn that curve around and get in the opposite direction. So what are we facing here locally? Massachusetts, from climate change. Climate change, we've got rising temperatures, we've got heat waves, and these are going to be more frequent. They're going to be more larger impacts, greater energy demands to do cooling in the summers, and we're going to see increased wildfires. So these are things to keep in mind that we need to do to make our communities sustainable. We've got to address these. Changing precipitation patterns, so we're going to have more intense rainstorms, not necessarily more of them, but there's going to be more rain falling. And when we get droughts, they're going to be longer and they're going to be worse. The storm surge and coastal flooding, we're going to get increased coastal erosion, flooding in low-lying areas, damage the coastal infrastructure, like the sewer treatment plant and the electrical grid down there, and ecosystems and communities. And then rising ocean temperatures and acidification. As the carbon dioxide is absorbed by the ocean, the acid levels go up, and that's a problem for creatures that have to build skeletons and clams, things like this. So in ecosystem and biodiversity losses, we've got climate-caused habitat impacts, damages due to fragmenting, isolating different pieces of the ecosystems, and damaging natural habitats. Invasive species, we have warmer temperature. We're going to be getting the invasive species coming in from the south as the temperatures warm, going up, and that's going to, and some of the things that are up here are going to be, some of the plants that are up here are going to be impacted. Ecosystem damage from storms, that's rapid displacement of wildlife, and also that can release a lot of pollutants, so washing stuff off the land into the waters. And in infrastructure and our as-built environment, high demands on electrical grid, I mentioned that in the summer for cooling. Coastal and low-lying infrastructure being damaged or in the way of damage if they're near shorelines. Upriver storm surge, so as the system is coming in, we're getting a storm surge going up the river. At the same time, we've got heavy rainfalls up further up in the watershed, and they meet in the middle. So Haverhill, who thinks they're fairly safe, all of a sudden are going to find they've got a bubble there of water, because the water coming down can't get out. And then heavy erosion, so increased flooding. This is a picture here of North Carolina. Oop, the water's been taken out. There's a river on the left, and water basically just rose up out of the river and just took out everything along the shoreline. So that's what we're looking at. Have I got it? Yeah.
The question is, how do you feel about the future? Really, based upon what you just saw, what should what should we be considering? So what's your reaction to those things that Lon said, that the news feature said, plus what was advanced in the beginning? Not to be solemn, but to be realistic, and reality is in front of us. Because as Jeff Olson, who is a very successful person in the world, having created multi-billion-dollar businesses, said, it's never too late to start, and that's what we think. It's right here, we need to start, because it's always too late to wait. So what would you say? What comments would you make that Ben can record that we can share with others? John?
I guess I would add, as a wannabe farmer, and for the last 20 years, that's what I've been doing, and the last 3 years have been disastrous, given the climate. First, we had that drought, severe drought, and then we had a deluge of rain the next year, and I have not been that successful with some of my crops, especially my strawberries. I don't have any strawberries again this year.
So what are you, when projecting forward and looking forward, what?
Yeah, we have to address what's causing these climate changes. But we have to address them as a world, not just as Newburyporters or not just as Massachusetts. It is something that has to be dealt with. And our federal government has got to recognize this and address it.
Given that backdrop, one of the things we decided that we can't wait for the federal government to be on track with environmental stewardship, but we have to work locally, act personally now, hence this program, this initiative. What would anybody else say? Susan?
Well, I just think that this is here, right here, and seeing this work that you all are doing is a really encouraging start to move toward, to continue and to move forward. I mean, the picture is discouraging, but there are many people who are working toward change, and that makes me feel hopeful.
Thank you. I mean, the work that Ben and the Senior Center is doing is a model to the types of changes that are needed.
So work locally, and that,
Continue to
the
work
gist of your
locally
question?
and
Comment?
continue and intensify the initiatives.
Mhm.
I mean, always working worldwide and nationally and voting and all those things as well, but I think it's encouraging to see what has been done.
Yes.
A question for this gentleman about the garden. Do you have a big garden or a huge garden?
He has a
big-
Maple Crest Farm. It's an actual farm.
What is it? Oh,
Maple Crest Farm.
Farm.
oh, okay.
I just planted 2,500 strawberry plants.
Wow.
I planted 800 Christmas tree seedlings. They're about this tall.
Yeah.
And it takes 8 to 10 years to grow them, which only proves one point. At my age, I'm an optimist.
Same here.
Thank you.
Okay, no, I have a very small garden, and when he said the strawberries didn't do well at all, it's like last year, my garden didn't do well at all, and I did the same thing that I've done every year. So is this something, or am I just thinking I didn't do a good job with the fertilizer or
I
something?
could say the same thing about my tomato plants. The last
Yeah.
3 years of the yield and the amounts have been dramatically different.
Okay, then my tomatoes are okay, kind of, I think, maybe this year. But like zucchini and cucumbers, and that's all I do, the three things. One year, 2 years ago, I think I had one zucchini. I don't know.
And they grow wild, the zucchini.
Oh, yeah, and I look back on what I used to get, and I used to get like 30 some odd zucchini.
Okay. So we got a number of slides. Any comments, Susan?
I like to think that lots of us have individual projects or ways that we are trying to live a greener life. The cars we drive, I don't use a clothes dryer. I don't eat meat. Everybody's got their ways, but this is a good, active, intelligent community, and I think it will behoove us as a community to prioritize what more major projects we should all be working on. Like, I don't know what they should be, but I think we ought to at least put them out there.
That's very well said, because there's a lot to do. We've got to prioritize, and we have to work in a disciplined manner. Peter, anything?
We all know what needs to be done. We all know what needs to be done. We just don't know how to do it. I live on the beach. There were no beach plums last year. They all dried up and fell off. Back when Walter Cronkite was making his broadcast, I was working on my thesis in architecture school about revitalizing rural communities. They're in worse shape now than they were 55 years ago. And these are people who are close to it. How do I feel about the future? If the answer is that the government's going to help, all I can tell you is I wake up every single morning worried, thinking about how bad things have become in the past several months, in the past 4 months, 5 months. So how do I feel about the future? I wish I could be more optimistic. And I guess I just do what I can do. We drive a pure EV. We try to stay in touch with our community. I still go back and forth between Plum Island and Vermont, and at least I'm not emitting carbon fumes on the way. So how do I feel about the future? How I feel, I guess, is I wish I could be more optimistic.
Well, the fact is you're taking personal action is a statement to the fact that you want to make a difference, and you are.
There's a lot of people, I think, take personal action, but they don't even know how to recycle. They want to recycle, they do what they think they know how to do, but they're still throwing the wrong stuff in the recycling bin and the right stuff out with the trash. So,
Right.
How do I feel about the future? I wish I knew.
Well, thank you for those comments. We're going to go on, because what you're thinking about, which working to address in this process, and frankly, I hope you'll be part of this effort. So, since December, we've had a variety of conversations with a variety of people in the greater Newburyport area, focused on this issue of 2050, because there's mandates that are very significant and challenging. And out of these conversations, you can see that May 22nd, we had to cancel one that was going to be here because of the bad weather. That was unusual weather for that time of the earlier, mid-May. Out of those conversations have come these conclusions or highlights. And you can see in here it says that there's little planning happening right now to achieve the established goals of the UN, as well as the notion of the 3 pillars of sustainability. That a public-private collaborative entity needs to be established. That funding is required, and that initial test program is needed so that people can have more grasp of what's intangible, because there's so many things. So we've got to have an example. And in that vein, I mentioned 3 pillars. We think about the environmental health of our planet, but we don't necessarily think about the interrelationships between people, money, and the environment. And it's simply stated, the rest of the world is working diligently with this understanding, under this context, because the people who want to make a difference have to have money to really make significant differences, especially in infrastructure. So there's a definite buy. It's not just tree huggers and marsh hawks doing the right thing. It's everybody working together. And this is the process that's been outlined that we need to follow. And it begins with discovery and ends with iterating, scaling, and sharing. So these 5 steps, we can't set any goals before we define what needs to be addressed in terms of the challenges, opportunities, givens from the past, and for the present. And then we can define shared goals and desired outcomes. And the rest of the process will work. But we don't need ideas right now. We actually have to look at all the facts and reality. So uncovering that is number 1. Tomorrow night, the mayor will be talking about this perspective that he has now. You can see his comments. And he has fortunately been an understanding person that we really do have to lead the way to the future. 25 years from now, as it says. We saw what happened 55 years. 25 years, we have to be net zero. So, looking forward, he reiterates some things you saw that the overall group talked about. And the new collaborative entity needs to be set up. There's no one organization. This is not a matter of a municipality developing a plan, because ecosystems are what's going to drive us. Molly is going to be talking about what has happened in terms of waste reduction, because waste is the most tangible challenge for every single person, every business, every entity. We've got to reduce waste. Yes?
If you want to take questions or not. This gentleman raised a point about recycling. And one of the things that I hardly ever hear anybody talk about, we're always holding citizens responsible, and Molly and so forth, to tell us how to do everything. Why should Market Basket and Shaw's, etc., get away with selling us all the plastic? No, nobody ever goes after them, and I don't know where they would go to have different products. But I remember back when recycling first started, and you couldn't recycle number 5s, and so Whole Foods let you take number 5 yogurt back to Whole Foods. I don't know what they did with it, but supposedly they found a way to recycle it. And I just think it's great that we hold ourselves responsible and we learn better, but there's some other characters that need to get on board.
Thank you for your being a steward, plus that question, because we have considered that going forward. It can't be just up to everybody. The system has to work. So,
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
This is kind of a hot button for me, I guess. You know I got a lot of them.
No, but
Does anybody in this room think that we can eliminate plastic packaging? I do not.
No.
Does
No.
anybody think that we can eliminate plastic packaging?
That we can.
totally eliminate plastic packaging.
I think, my theory, having studied this as much as I can, is that the Beyond Plastics movement is motivated by the fossil fuel industry. Because as long as we say, let's get rid of plastics, we're going to have plastics. And I think they're also promoted the myth that a lot of these number so-and-so, 1 through 5 through 7, plastics cannot be recycled. And we had a meeting showing how that virtually all plastics can be reused for bulk plastic materials, such as building products. They get put together, and what was his name that we talked to? He said he's taken the whole range of plastics, turned them into plastic panels, and been able to take those panels that could be used in building construction and recycle those panels 7 times. So if
Ben, are you
those panels
capturing
live in a
that?
building for 50 years,
No, but the essence of what he's talking about.
plastic being tied up. So I just had to put that out there because it really seems to me that to ever think that we're getting rid of plastics, for anybody who's walked through a supermarket or a Home Depot or Lowe's, it's just not.
Okay, so I'd like to finish with this because that,
My point wasn't about getting rid of plastics. My point was upholding places like Market Basket. They need to take some responsibility since.
Well, the manufacturers.
Yeah, and there are, the last thing I'll say is there are chains like Kroger's in the Midwest who are doing that for all types of plastics. And so I appreciate your point. It's an excellent point.
so let me go on because we're going to come back to this. And remember, working locally, acting personally, it's not just residents acting personally, it's everybody who runs a business, ministers in a church, whatever. So if we look at this list of things that have happened since recycling started in 1993, you notice in 2012 and 14 that a single-use plastic bag ordinance was put in place, and Newburyport was the first city in the state to enact the ban. So that is a plastic container that is not accepted in Newburyport any longer. And Demoulas's Market Basket had to go along with that. Now they've got, nonetheless, there's other approaches, but that's important. And as well as we started a 50 household compost pilot to understand what can happen in 2012-14. Now that's over 1,000 now. So that's a significant statement of progress. It's been a lot of work, but nonetheless. And if you look at this, we have a citywide subscription campaign through Black Earth Compost now. We banned mattresses and textiles because there's no space in. So we have made progress locally. Some of the surrounding communities, we've got examples for them to use. I'm going to have, because we're into the discovery phase of finding out what can work, what has worked, beyond what we've just outlined, and we've got a model right here. So Ben Iacono is going to talk about the model for towards zero waste.
While you're changing, do you all know that we have an effort going to get the restaurants to compost?
There is a program that we're working with the restaurants.
Some part of it.
Yeah.
Well, I just say that what Tom Zabo and you all are working on, and David Hall, it's all going to come together because it's can't be a small group, but that type of approach is perfect. Thank you for what you've done.
And inclusive of hopefully the schools and other facilities that can all be added to the plan. Back in October, we started a program here to try to use the facility and the users of the facility as a focus group to develop a model that other facilities in the community could adapt. And we started with, our project objective was use this facility and users, introduce best practices, effective collection system, and significant participation. And the significant participation we felt was key because, let's face it, people our age and people that frequent the facility, when we were young, we were brought up to collect a lot of those things. We collected newspapers and sold them. Our parents collected metal, clothing, and there were places to drop those off. We had the farmers come weekly and pick up the swill bucket that we all had in the back of our yards. So we felt that this was, you know, it wasn't something new, something that the community that facilitates this facility couldn't adapt to. And let's face it, we got away from those practices, and that's how we got to where we are. So the first phase that we wanted to focus on was focusing our attention on the senior hours, 8 to 4 in that population. Phase 2 would be expanded to the evening hours and weekend hours, and we will develop common practices that could be implemented and used by all of them. And we made it our objective to have this facility be designated as a zero-waste facility. Okay, is that the next step?
Yep.
Okay, so the first campaign that we started with food waste, and we developed a program called Drop a Bag, Get a Bag. Basically, we are providing a 1-gallon compostable Ziploc bag that is given free to each participant to take home, collect the food waste. Next time they're here, and most of people are here 2 or 3 times a week, basically we have collection points here that they can drop it off. Now, that's in addition to, I'd mentioned that we have a curbside program with Black Earth that some people pay to get that bin, that little blue, green bin that you see around the community, and there's about 1,000 residents in that program. That's a paid program, but this is a free program. And basically, convenient plastic containers, compostable one, designate facilities, no single use, and encourage refillable containers. That's campaign number 2, which is below that. Oh, where's campaign number 2? We lost campaign number. Campaign number 2 is reduce the use of plastic.
Campaign 1 and
Oh, there
2 is
okay,
right there.
All right, all right.
Practice.
All right, we got the logistics going.
You can just use this to go forward.
Oh, all right,
There you go. There you go. Next.
all right. There we go, okay. So we've already, with campaign number 2, reduce the use of plastics. We have a refillable station here, which was made with the facility, when the facility was purchased. And we've changed some of the requirements in the flyers for the rental portion to alert people that this facility is going to be a no single-use facility. And we're looking at and anticipating what the logistics are going to be with that, and hopefully in a couple of months we'll have worked out all the bugs and turn that into, get that campaign going.
This is Maxima, I think.
Okay. No, why am I? Okay. This is the Senior Community Center model. The model is evolving. That's why it's kind of a handwritten model. But basically, when we looked at what was needed to get this facility going, we said we have to really incorporate all of the elements of this facility. As you can see, the key people are the senior core users and the community users. Those are the people that are here in and out, and the facility itself. That's the core model. And what we need to make this happen, well, we have services there on the left, H-SPAN, Black Earth Compost, and custodians. Those are all pretty much actively involved. Custodians, and I'll explain in a little while, every week they measure the amount of containers, what the volume of each of the containers. And we are tracking that by doing this weekly volume. The partners, the Resiliency Committee, ACES, and City Sustainable Office. The people, youth interns, Newburyport Recycling Center, and ambassadors. We've created a group of people called ambassadors, waste ambassadors, and basically they go around observing, teaching, correcting practices. And then education, that's the biggest thing. In making these things, education, teaching people what goes in which container, what's recyclable, what's trash, and what's food waste, those type of things. So that's a model that we hope to pass along to another facility that needs to involve all of those people. So everybody has got to collaborate in making it happen.
Just comment, we could envision the other senior centers in the other communities doing a similar thing.
Now, this is our accomplishment with the food waste program. As you can see, we started in October, and we started with an average, that particular month, we averaged 45 gallons per week in October. November was 77 gallons per week. December was 73. January was 78. February was 63. And then since February, we've seen a dramatic increase. March was 449 gallons per week. I'm sorry. March was 90 gallons per week average. April was 112, and this past month was 148. So we're getting the participation, and that's basically where the growth is. We have, you can see containers within the facility, and then we have 2 containers outside that the facility uses as well as the neighborhood people use. So that's the progress. And basically, the more we talk about, the more we talk to people and network with people, that's where hopefully more is going to grow. Okay, this is just some data. We won't dwell so much on that, but that's basically driving that graph. Okay, now, do you want to do this, or shall I do this? Okay, well, to try to catch up with the rest of the world, what we're starting to use is really artificial intelligence to try to get data and try to get information on what other people are doing, what the industry is doing. And, you know, we're trying to use that more relevant information. And I think a key thing is really more important to see how the other communities that we are hoping to collaborate with, you can see what AI is telling us, that there is a lot of room for growth, a lot of room for improvement with the other communities. And the fact that the community of Newburyport is so far ahead of other communities, they don't have to start from scratch, that we can transfer the information and the knowledge that we've expanded to the other communities. So there's a lot of things we got to do with the others. Geez, how come these?
Well, that's right.
Okay, what the artificial intelligence is telling us. Some examples: hire a dedicated sustainable coordinator. Start with a pilot program to gain support. And that's what we think the Seniors Community Center is, as an example. Engage residents directly through town hall surveys and schools. That's the collaboration aspects of it. Use clear goals and metrics, measuring our progress. You can't improve unless you measure where you're at any given point in time. Leverage local community and volunteers and grassroots. Hopefully, some of the participants in all these echo conversations have been getting the message that we can all take some action. Secure state and federal grants and partner with nonprofits. There are still some federal grants, but we can't rely on them as much as we thought we can. Make the initiative visible with signage, maps, and community events. Okay.
I hope you took away from that section the fact that we're approaching this in a fairly comprehensive, proven, disciplined way to leverage what has gone right, but overcome what needs to be amplified. The AI is unbelievable what results we can get. It has to be verified. That table that Ben showed, now we can have individuals in each community go into the town office or the city hall and verify what the specifics are. So we've got a place to go from versus coming in and say, what are you guys doing? The first question we would like from you, your question, whatever it is about reducing waste. So far of what we've talked about, what question do you have about how this collaborative? Peter?
Can I get involved in the SCC program for composting before I leave today?
Sure, just go to there, ask for a bag, take it home, fill it, next time you see it, drop it off, or send us clothes, drop it off on site.
I love it.
Simple.
I love it.
Convenient and affordable, zero cost.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, anybody can participate in that program. You don't have to be a senior, you don't have to be part of a program here. If you're a community member, just go there and pick it up.
So what other questions do you think we need to answer in order to, yes?
I just was thinking when you were talking about school kids, are the schools teaching their kids to come home to their parents and get them to recycle? And is there some kind of program like that?
So your question is, what are the schools doing to help the parents and families recycle?
Yeah.
Good question. We need to get the answer to that specifically by school, because there's differences. So, but that's what we have to understand.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer, just
Um,
have a way of just say, hey, go home.
Yep.
I thought I heard something about that,
Yes. Yes, it's a subject of conversation, and the school, before COVID, was doing very well at the middle school in terms of composting. We're re-engaging. So,
Question, do you know why people don't recycle or don't compost? Is it that they don't know how, or they don't want to spend the time?
that's a good question. We have to get that answered we'll do it by a survey, but what causes people who don't recycle to not recycle? Convenience is the major, major factor. But we want to have the answer in our communities, and that's part of the process, to understand that. Peter?
I hate to monopolize the conversation, but I'd like to follow up on your excellent point about the supermarkets and the superstores that handle all this stuff, even before it comes to us. And so my parenthetical question is, how do we leverage these big plastic handlers to be at the core of recycling, when in fact there are supermarket chains who are actively doing that? And I'd be glad to send you some information on that. We were sort of circulating some of that among ourselves when we had Nathan come and talk with us, who's a startup recycler. So I don't know whether it's local government that can approach the supermarkets.
Well, you see,
Who it is.
I would say that question is Ben has it. We have to get to the answer to that.
Yeah.
Because of what you said, there are the tetracycle types of entities out there that are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But the motivation for the others who need to be convinced, just as they did, I will share this. About 15 of us were working on the single-use plastic bottles, talking to the city council for months. Nothing.
Would you take a protest out in front of Market Basket?
No, but
You would sign?
I'm going to just share what happened with that was that some of the youth, children of people involved, said, well, what if we say something? What if we take this forward? So about 4 young people made a case to the city council. And guess what? Within 6 weeks, we had the ordinance. So That's interesting when you think about what happened in Lexington. 3 fourth graders stood up in a town meeting and said we should ban single-use plastic bags. And guess what? Town meeting, you're not supposed to clap. Everybody clapped, approved right then. So, Gloucester, Manchester, Salem, Beverly, same thing, young people. They made the plea. And this is really all about young people. It's about the future generations that are, you know, a 15-year-old in 25 years is going to be 40. So
there are efforts to put the responsibility back on plastic suppliers to have a responsibility to do something with the component that they're producing. I don't know what that I don't know what that term is.
well, in one way, the microplastics and the nanoplastics that come from breaking down plastic that are in now babies' brains has to be understood by the people who don't get it as a fact that you don't like to talk about that, but that's reality. And reality, answering every question with what's the reality is part of the strategy for this group. So the next question is, thinking about being organized to address the challenges, what comments or questions do you have that we could include in this process?
I'm not sure I'm in the right category, but I think about how do we encourage people or give them support, like, you know, you can do it. My example is, I like, you know, Petey's restaurant up there in New Hampshire. Well, I like to eat their scallops, broiled scallops. So the first time I did it, they gave it to me in a styrofoam container. So every time I order, I say, but I don't want any styrofoam. And I'm hopeful that they're getting the message and that other people would say the same thing, and so they'll stop putting the things in styrofoam. They put it in a kind of cardboard container.
And thank you for doing that. That's stewardship action.
You know, I think a lot of people don't think that they could do that.
Right.
They could make a difference. They do the same thing with ice cream and stuff, you know.
So,
I like ice cream, but don't give it to me.
so is it fair to say the question is, in terms of getting organized, is one way is to allow for each individual to in some way connect with this issue? Is that a fair iteration of that?
Give them the
And what can we do to help respond to their interests and motivate them? Good point. Okay, any other thoughts about organization? We're going to provide some ideas, but your questions are good. And then the next one is about developing a collaborative public-private entity. So that means, to Peter's question about who does it, it's not the cities and towns. They have to be a leader, but it needs to be everybody in different ways. And that's why the public, i.e. the city administration, town administration, and the private, i.e. all the businesses, the residents, you'll see in a minute, some others, need to come together. I mean, that's what we have to do. At least that's one of the conclusions of what's gone on before. Any other thoughts about that question, that overall issue of private-public collaborative? Okay, we're going to go forward. This is part of the technology we're using through the good grace of some savvy people. This is going to be these questions on Thursday night. We're going to be able to show the questions live. Hi, Sue. Show the questions live, and we're going to capture many more questions from people. And we're not going to answer the questions. Why? Because we're going to go get the answers to the questions. It's not a time for ideas. It's a time for facts and what's actually happening with respect to these questions right here, amplifying what you just said with other people. That's what we're going to do on Thursday. And then we've got a follow-up regarding the discovery phase, or providing answers to questions that have been asked, on June 26th. And we're asking people for who else should be invited. Who else could be involved in this that has the values, I think, that you do as stewards, or you'd like to have. So Susan's going to come back, and she's in the back room listening. She's going to come back on the 26th. What are the collaborating communities? I mean, you could say the world that doesn't work. We got to have something tangible. It's not just Newburyport, because it's ecosystem and biosphere oriented. The marshes, Rowley, Newbury, Newburyport, Salisbury, waters the river, is a big source of water for our recreation and upstream for drinking water. But yet it's got challenges. The reason these communities are there because of there's two things. One is the physicality of the connection. So Newburyport gets its drinking water primarily from Indian Hill and West Newbury, for example. The school districts where a lot of this has to happen, Pentucket is West Newbury, Merrimack, and Groveland. Groveland also participates in a toxic waste cleanup here we have every spring to bring toxic chemicals to bear. So that's why we're looking at these communities. And we've already started to establish conversations to establish town teams, people of different backgrounds and interests to deal with this overall. The second thing is communities of interest. So we said communities. We said communities. What are the communities of interest? The town or city administration is one, but that's not the answer. So dealing with environmental organizations, as you can see, chambers of commerce, retail businesses, the restaurants, all of these need to be involved. They need to participate. So it's our energy, the expanded group's energy, that's going to get them involved. And everything under control, Scott? Not quite? Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. Any comments? Thank you. And the last statement's very important, because you've come, you've heard, you can make a difference with whatever is of interest to you, because we can make a big difference together. Individually, that's why ACES got started. We're an in-support organization for, in this case, communities. This Fostering Sustainable Communities Initiative is not an ACES initiative. We have to have a new collaborative entity, just like the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and they'll be part of that. There's other groups that are multi-community. While ACES is multi-community, we've got a full platter, and this requires a different level of organization. The good thing is such things as little tidbits. The multi-community aspect of this means it's not just one community, and therefore the state funds for multi-community activities are different and could apply to this. And the fact that the governor is connected with this area because of family background, that helps. And the orientation of Greater Newburyport to do green things. Newburyport's a green community, but we have to be a much greener community, as well as resilient. The Resiliency Committee is doing fabulous work, and now we have to focus on sustainability. So it's the three things that we talked about earlier. Ben?
One other comment. A lot of people that we talk to and involving in doing this type of work, they feel overwhelmed. And the key question is, what can me as a little person do? And that's why we focus on the attention that we all can do a little bit. And if we all do a little bit, before you know it, the volume of participation, you see the improvement, tangible improvement. So don't ever feel that you're not contributing. Even if that 1 gallon a week that you collect, if that's what it is, it's amazing. And those people that participate in food waste collection, be it the curbside portion, or be it this program, or be it composting for their garden, it's amazing how much of the waste, the waste is taken out of the system and doesn't go to the burning facility or the landfill facility. And I'm personally up to the point where, since I started my food collection program, every other week I have enough to send up to the trash, because food waste is a significant portion of my total waste. So, you know, don't get discouraged because we're all one individual. We can all do our best.
I want to acknowledge one thing that Ben and the Senior Center have done. HSPAN, which is a regional support group for Meals on Wheels, serve 4,000 people a day. Because of what's happened here, they're going to make a transfer from plastic packaging to compostable packaging. So, in terms of the impact, it's saying that's why doing this with multi-community, we can have a lot of impact.
I love your optimism.